Good morning, everyone. We want to welcome you to Behind the Mask Stories of Courage, Growth, and Strength. Every woman has a story, one of resilience, transformation, and wisdom. And we want to thank you for joining us this beautiful Friday morning for this unforgettable session as we get ready to pull back those masks and celebrate the power of authenticity. I want to introduce you to our panelists this morning. And as I mention your name, just kind of wave your hand so we know who we're talking about here. All right. So our first panelist, and this is in no particular order, Lemi-Ola Erinkitola is an award-winning educator, author, and founder of the Critical Thinking Child, a Chicago-based tutoring and virtual learning enterprise. Dedicated to empowering parents and educators, she has helped over 30,000 families with tutoring and test prep since 2015. A leader in cybersecurity education, she serves as the co-chair for the National Initiative of Cybersecurity Education, NICE, K-12 Community of Interest Group. Recognized nationally, Lemi-Ola has been featured on ABC, WGN, and Good Morning America, and is a recipient of the President Barack Obama Lifetime Achievement Award and the GFEL Education of the Year Award. Holding degrees from Rush University and the University of Illinois, she also trained in critical thinking at the University of Edinburgh. A devoted mother of three, she enjoys puzzles and international travel. Everyone, please welcome Lemi-Ola. All right, our next panelist, Isoken Ogbomo, is a dedicated healthcare leader with over 20 years of experience as a CNA, RN, and NP. Witnessing gaps in senior care, she founded Complete Health Service and co-founded Bridgewell Health, providing personalized aging in-place solutions for seniors and their caregivers. As area director of the Chicago Suburb Care Planning Council, she advocates for aging resources and education. A Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses graduate, she has been recognized as NAWBO Chicago's 2024 Women Business of the Owner of the Year Award and not one of NAWBO's top 10 women business owners. Beyond healthcare, Isoken serves as president of Elevations International Ministries, supporting disadvantaged communities through service and faith-based initiatives. A wife and mother of three, she enjoys reading, family time, table tennis, and leading Bible study. Everybody, please welcome Isoken. All right. Come on down. Sound like the Price is Right this morning. I did watch that as a child, so please forgive me if I sound like that. All right, next up we have Carmen Londono is a no-nonsense insurance expert, entrepreneur, and advocate for women in business. With 20 plus years in the industry, she founded the Insurance Pros to help small businesses navigate coverage without the confusion. Her mission, making insurance make sense. No jargon, no gimmicks. Inspired by her immigrant mother's struggles, Carmen is passionate about education and empowerment, ensuring women entrepreneurs have the knowledge to protect and grow their businesses. Beyond insurance, she's a food enthusiast and founder of According to Carmen, a charcuterie and catering venture. She's also writing a book, blending raw entrepreneurship stories with real business lessons to uplift and inspire. We're going to be looking for that book. Please welcome Carmen. And last but never least is one of my special favorite friends. Miss Mary Balistreri is the CEO and president of MBT More Business Today and the Mindful Business Coach. With over a decade of experience in leadership and business coaching, she helps individuals and organizations harness their strengths to grow talent, build teams, and drive business success. Mary specializes in business development, leadership growth, and professional development, using a results-driven approach to overcome obstacles and create actionable plans. As a certified diversity to belonging facilitator and conversational intelligence CIQ coach, she champions courageous conversations and inclusive leadership, fostering trust and mindfulness as the foundation for lasting success. In recognition of her impact, Mary was honored with the 2024 Visionary Award from NAWBO Chicago for her leadership and commitment to empowering women in business. Everybody, please welcome Mary. And I am your host for the day, your moderator, Ebony Whitson. My company is Whitson Winter Productions. We are a full service event production company, and we specialize in customizing designs, specialize in customizing decor and design for your events, whether it's private, corporate, or nonprofit. We are your go to one stop shop for all things events. All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty this morning. We want to talk about behind the mask. So I'm gonna round this, start these questions off. And I know we said Q&A at the end, but if you do have something burning that we mentioned and you want to jump in there and ask, feel free to pop that question in the chat, and then we'll try our best to kind of address it as we go. If not, we'll circle back at the end. All right, so my first question goes to Lemi-Ola. We always want to know work-life balance, right? We hear that term. Everybody says that. Does it really exist? So how have you managed to balance the demands of raising 3 children while also launching and growing your own business? And if you can share some of those strategies that work for you, because we all are taking notes right now. You're muted, honey.
Thank you, Ebony. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, NAWBO, for this opportunity, and to Chicago BACP for this wonderful opportunity. That is a question that comes up a lot, being able to balance work life and family. And there is no easy answer to that one, but I will start by maybe sharing a little bit about how I got involved in doing what I call my own work, meaning entrepreneurship, because I actually didn't start off being an entrepreneur. I kind of grew into that role. I spent 25 years in corporate America. So for those of you in that space, you know what that's like, and then trying to raise a family on top of that. So it was a very stressful environment. And what led me to make the shift was actually my family. So it was because of my children that I wanted them to have the best possible educational opportunity. And navigating the educational system is not an easy task. So I found myself being, very driven in terms of figuring out that puzzle piece. And that's how I started my company. And that's how I was able to give my children the best possible educational opportunity. As I transitioned away from corporate America into becoming an entrepreneur, it was very challenging. And some of the strategies that I learned along the way, and I'm still learning, having been in business for a decade and a half, I'll be honest with you, I learned something new even this week. And I'll start with that. Some fresh learning and relearning again is that you're gonna have to lean on trusted people. You have to find, you can't have too many voices in your ear, because that will derail you from your vision and your mission rather. And a lot of people won't really understand what it is that you're passionate about and what you're trying to do. But I have found whenever I'm down in the weeds, trying to figure things out, come up for air, juggle so many things, I take a breath, and I reach out to people in my network who understand, and their words of encouragement. So my network friends at NAWBO, my network friends in my community church, limited family. I'm going to be honest with you, because the family politics and dynamics don't always work in your favor. Let's be honest. So make sure you have that circle, even if it's one or two. I mean, for me, it's, less than 5, and that I'm fine with that. So when I get to a point where I feel like I am stressed and stretching, that phone call where I can just listen to their voice and they can hear me talk and give me words of wisdom really brings me back up and allows me to remember my why and keep going. So
I love that. And I want to touch base on that, because it sounds like you're leaning in towards a great support system. Is that correct? All right.
That is correct.
And that's so key. And it doesn't have to be family. Sometimes your family doesn't understand the reason why you're doing what you're doing, and they think we're crazy, right? How dare you step out of the norm? How dare you leave your corporate job, right? That's security.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I want to jump over to Carmen, because hearing that work-life balance and seeing how we're all trying to do that as moms, CEOs, helpers, community leaders, you're a CEO, mother, advocate, mentor, like how many hats do you have, girl? Like what's one of the myths about having it all that you'd like to just have us kind of throw away right now so that we know like this is how you get your balance because this is what's the reality of it is, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and I think also to piggyback on a lot of what Lemmy is saying, sometimes it's more about alignment, right? Because it's not going
Mm-hmm.
to look the same every day, especially when you have all of these fires at the same time burning. Um, it's a balance. It's a juggling act, and some balls are glass, some are rubber, and some balls are going to roll under the couch, and you just got to pretend you didn't see them roll under the couch and leave them be. And so for me, it's also about grace, knowing your no. I struggled with that I mean, I think for the most part, especially women of color struggle with saying no and
Mm-hmm.
putting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so 100%. Calendars are my love language. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. And just really having those things that work for you. What works for me might not work for, everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, really learning how to ignore that guilt that creeps up. That mom guilt is real. And just balancing that. And that's why I talk about alignment. And so specifically that tribe that you have to lean on, that part is essential in order for us to be able to succeed. And it's not always found in family, and not because family is bad, but I'll never forget when I told my mom that I was going to do my thing. She damn near lost her mind because for her, it's not that she didn't think I was smart enough or good enough, but they, especially the boomers, they have this mentality of, you work 30, 40 years, you get your pension, you do the
Mm-hmm.
thing. But that's not reality anymore, right? Employers are not as loyal as they were back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's not to say that when we talk about entrepreneurship, I think a lot of people glamorize it a lot, and it's not for everybody. Not everybody can do it or wants to do it, and that part's okay too. But
Mm-hmm.
for those of us who have that calling, like there is no other place to be. It's like trying to put a square peg in a round hole,
Yeah.
and it's not feasible.
I
So
totally understand that.
yeah,
I really I can resonate with that because I'm in a field where, you hear event planners and everybody feels like they can be an event planner, but it's not for everybody. And so you really got to find your lane in these things and what really speaks to you and what
right.
really is your passion. I really want to kind of jump into some of the things about our journey because we all talked about what you need when you get to this point, but a lot of us have different things that have prompted us to start businesses. Like Lemi-Ola said, I saw the need for the education. So Isoken, your journey was kind of one more so for like resilience and determination. Like you had to do what you had to do, and it stems from a background of immigrating to the United States as an adult. So can you talk some more about that, about your journey and how you kind of got started in your business?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for sharing that, for asking that question, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm super excited to share part of our journey. I mean, one thing I have to, put out this disclaimer: all of us here, none of us is perfect, none of us is an expert. We are still in the journey. We are learning, and
Hmm.
we have overcome some things, but there are still so many hurdles to overcome. So everyone should feel that you're supposed to be where you are. If you're here right now, you are supposed to be there. So for me, immigrating into this country as an adult and having to start my education all the way from GED when I already have a degree, and just going from that process of going to school, raising kids, having sometimes two jobs while going to school full time with three kids was not a joke, right? But it is the struggle, it is the resilience that when we come here, we believe that there is opportunity here and we want to immerse ourselves into the system. Now, for me, as I continue in the journey of healthcare, I've always wanted to be in healthcare industry, so it was just a great alignment for me. And as I continue in that journey, I begin to see the different gaps in the healthcare system, the complexity of the healthcare system in America. The as good as great as the healthcare is here, but there's so many gaps and so many people who may not even understand how it works, just like Lemmy was talking about education system. It was the same thing. I felt so lost, trying to help my kids navigate the education system and trying to balance them from balance what's happening, the culture in the home and the culture out there, right? That's the challenge of an immigrant family. But again, the point is when you know that there's opportunity, you lean into it and you continue the process. There are days where you almost asking yourself, what in the world am I doing? Why am I struggling so hard? Why are so many obstacles, right? But the point is the resilience. We have to be resilient as mothers, as women, as whatever role you play. There is going to be that obstacle. There's going to be that challenge. We all go through different challenges. They may be different. The degree may be different, but we do all have similar struggles. The story of humanity is overcoming challenge with patience and resilience, and that is what has been a big part for me. My faith has been a big part of that resilience too, because there are days you almost just give it up and say, okay, God, you just take over. I'm done. Whatever happens.
Right.
And that's when actually God steps in. So it is an ongoing challenge.
Mhm.
We have to be resilient. We have to get up. Failure is part of success.
Mhm.
There's no success without failure. We just have to fail, allow ourselves to fail, but continue to race. So
And I
hopefully
believe
that
people
answers the
usually,
question.
it does. And I believe people say fail forward. Nobody
Yes.
has gotten anywhere by without failing. If you look at Michael Jordan, and he's a popular example of how many times he actually failed before he became who he was. And I think
Yes.
that's something that we really need to kind of highlight more of. It's not an overnight success story with entrepreneurship. It's really kind of like, Lemi-Ola said, we are in the weeds, and then we come out of the weeds, and then we come into this entrepreneurship life that looks glamorous on the outside, but it's really not on the inside.
It's not.
I want to touch on something because the theme of resiliency is really kind of developing here and during your business. And Mary, I know you know a lot about being resilient in your business, about battling challenges while you're building your business, still securing those deals while things are coming at you. Can you talk more on that and give us some information on what it's like to be resilient in your business with your experience?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking about that. And I just have to say, I echo what everyone else has said so far, knowing who that support system is and making sure that you reach out to people when you're in the midst of those struggles. And the story of my business is I really always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. All of the assessments pointed to that, but I got to say, I was afraid. I was afraid of not having the paycheck. And so I worked in corporate for more than 20 years, similar to Lemi-Ola. And then when I joined NAWBO, which is the National Association of Women Business Owners, I was surrounded by other entrepreneurs, and I knew this is the place I need to be. And those women, including all of the women on the call today, have been that support system for me because I struggled with so many things, and really the word for all of it is grief and loss. I went through a phase where I lost my sister who had been sick since I was real young. I'd always been a caregiver for her in early 2023. And then when that happened, I realized that there were so many things I had been grieving for so many years. As you talk about, taking care of your elderly parents, and my mom had dementia, and that had been a long run, and then she died at the end of 2023. But during that time, I realized that there was so much loss that I had felt in so many different areas, including in business, that I'd never addressed. And so, what I recommend to everyone is scheduling some time on your calendar to just feel, to be in that moment, whether it's things going on in your business or things going on in your family. And most of the time, it's both, right? Schedule that time on your calendar so that you can just kind of sit with it, maybe journal a little bit, but give yourself that opportunity to feel everything that you're feeling, because that's part of resilience, the feeling and the reflecting. And then ultimately, if you don't do that, what happens is it builds up, and you might find yourself exploding here or exploding there, or, drinking too much, eating too much, all of that kind of stuff, and neglecting the things that are important for your own care. Because as we all know, self-care is so important. If you're not taking care of yourself, then all this time we run around taking care of everybody else, it's not going to be good for us. We're going to fail eventually and lose our energy.
Absolutely. I want to take a poll, if anybody is brave enough to put their answer in the chat. How many people have scheduled self-care time? You can put an emoji, you can put a little hand clap, but I just want to
I hope
see
you did.
who actually does it. Anybody gonna be brave enough? I have started. Okay.
All right.
Not as regular as I'd like. Okay. Anybody? Okay. Michael. Sundays. Okay.
Oh, good.
Sundays are key. Sundays are rest days, family days. Anybody else? Pedis and manicures. Woo! I ain't gonna tell y'all what my feet look like, but yes, ma'am. All right. Yoga. Ooh. Hey, Sue. Okay. Yoga is key too. We got to get into some of that. Now, I'm looking at, I want to I want to touch on that self-care for just a little bit. Miss Carmen. And then you're like, what? Yes, I want to touch on self-care, and I want you to really just talk about what are some of the things that we can do, not just outwardly, but inwardly for our self-care. Just seeing some of the things that you've had to deal with within personal and business. What have you done to make sure that Carmen is taken care of?
Therapy. Therapy,
Yes.
cheese and wine, hence the charcuterie.
Yay.
I
love it.
That is like it is. I love it.
I mean, it's true. And my tribe, my girls, like I can't stress that enough. You need to find your people. Growing a business while dealing with loss. Nobody talks about it. It's not in a handbook, but it should be. Nobody tells you how to lead a team, meet payroll, show up for clients, do the laundry, feed the kid, go to the dental, whatever, all at the same time. And I've, we've all experienced loss, and loss looks different, right? Family structure changes, dynamics, all of that. But when and we still have to show up. We still have to show up to the parent-teacher conference, not looking raggedy. We still got to show up, to a networking event with some lipstick on. And to Mary's point, keep in the back of your head, like, don't crash out here. This is not the place to lose it, right? So absolutely, for me, therapy. And I again, in communities of color, therapy is not something that is, my mom's a preacher, so I was a PK, which is a whole other thing that I'm in therapy for. But, beyond like the regular, and, was always like, you just need more Jesus, like that was the answer, which, yes, my faith is very important to me, but just really having the space to do the work, and figure out what your triggers are and how to manage them. But you know, again, there's nothing like a good cry and a good conversation with a really good girlfriend or person in your life. And like
Absolutely.
we are meant to be in community, and that
Mhm.
is essential.
Absolutely. I think community, a good community, like Mary was saying, like we have NAWBO, but I'm sure there's some other organizations out there which, we do have a preference, but that are good and that provide a really good community because you can call on those girlfriends. They know what it's like. There might be someone else that has dealt with it's not just the, oh, I understand. It's no, girl, I've been there. Here's what I did, or here's how I can make it through. You need somebody like that. And of course, a licensed therapist, because I don't think that we're comfortable enough saying that I go to therapy. It's like, ooh, you go to what? What's wrong with you? Nothing. And I don't want it to be. And so that's why I'm going to therapy to make sure I am okay. Do you guys, any of you other ladies, want to chime in on some of the things that you do for self-care?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
if I
Mary.
if I can jump in, I also go
Mhm.
to therapy, and it has really been essential for me through loss. In 2016, we lost a number of really important people in our family. My husband's mom, my godmother, who had really been so important for so long, my sister's husband, and I lost my dog that same year. And in the midst of all of it, my sister also was getting deeply ill, more ill, and I had to go to the doctor with her all the time. And he would request that I go with her because otherwise she wouldn't listen, right? So I had to be the bomb for that. But that's when I started going to therapy specifically for grief, was back then. So I'm 100% in support of that. And then, as we were talking about before, finding those right people, for me, I have a great friend network. I thank the Lord every day for my friends because they got me through tough times at all stages of my life. And it's as if certain people understand certain things better. So
Mhm.
when it's about my business, that's when the NAWBO group comes in because very few of my friends own their own businesses. So those kinds of things. I make sure, this is something I started in 2016. What helps me the most and brings me, because you're always looking for something that brings you joy, right? To hold you up, is my interactions with my friends. So in 2016, I started scheduling, friend would reach out and say, I know you're grieving, what can I do? And I'd say, let's have coffee. So I have several friends who we do coffee once a month. And when we're together, we schedule the next one. And that way I always have something to look forward to. That for me is just vital to keeping my spirits up and helping me process loss and process happiness too, because you got to celebrate when things are good, right? But so that's a big one for me.
I love that. I love that.
Can
Isoken, do
I
you want to
just,
chime in? Oh,
Yeah.
no, go ahead.
No.
Wait, who? Okay,
No.
Carmen, Isoken, who we going to?
I just wanted to add one thing. I think that
Yes.
also, in the beginning when we were talking about
Work life.
uh I'm sorry.
You said work-life balance?
Yes, work-life balance and alignment. This all is a thread. It's all
Yeah.
connected.
Yeah.
Because when you build something with integrity and community and flexibility, okay, then you build it to support life, not just
Yeah.
the hustle. And
Right.
that's important because the foundation is what's going to carry you through
Mhm.
in anything, whether it's your marriage, whether it's a friendship, or whether it's your business.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
that's anyway, I'm done
Well,
with my
you
TED talk.
build your
Thank
business, like you said, to support you, not, not you support your business. Your business is supposed to be flexible around your life. And then we
Correct.
become so deep involved that it is our life. And we have to
Yeah.
step back and go, this is way too much. This is way too much.
Yeah.
Can
So
I just
Isa,
add one
Yeah.
more thing
we
on?
coming to you, girl. We are coming to you. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
Who's
ahead,
got the
let me.
mic?
No, so
Mic.
so so as everyone is talking about
She's got-
self-care, and I've started, and I'm really, really reflecting on my own practices, which, for I'm thinking to myself, oh wait, I don't really have a pattern of self-care. I just kind of randomly fix it, schedule things. And I'm not thinking that these are self-care. And I think this would apply to most other people too, that there are certain things that you do does not necessarily feels like you are scheduling self-care, but you're actually doing self-care. So it comes in different forms for people. And And I don't think that people should I don't see self-care as one big, gigantic 1 week vacation to Mexico. I see, I see self-care as something you do weekly or even daily. So for me, self-care, it's my time in prayer, right? That time is my time of inspiration and reflection, number one. And I think that prevents me from crashing a lot of times, right? I'm not doing it perfect, but it does help me a lot on a daily basis. Another form of self-care is that I'm starting to do within the past 3 months, which is exciting, is I go to the gym 3 times a week. That is my 30 minutes to myself. Is in Hot Works, which is a sauna and gym together. Just that detoxification, it's so amazing what happens when I walk out of there and I'm sweating, even if it's just a 20-minute workout. For me, that's my time that I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to see anybody. That is self-care for me. Another aspect of self-care that most of us, and then you can schedule things, right? You have to know yourself. Like if you're starting to feel very overwhelmed, that happened to me just a month ago, where you just start feeling very overwhelmed. Like you can't think, you're thinking of something and you lose your train of thought 5 times in 1 minute, right? You're like, okay, my brain is cooked. I'm done. I need to be uncooked. I need to refresh. And then find a moment, then that's when you need to schedule that getaway to decompress. But the point is, self-care can be small things you do every day. It could be hanging out with your support system. It could be your spirituality. It could be your meditation time. But it can also be just having the support system around you, or a big vacation. So
I love that. Yeah. Don't count out Mexico now, but that ain't gonna
know,
happen every
right?
weekend,
I
right?
know, I
It's not gonna
so
happen
good.
every weekend. All right, Lemi-Ola, it's yours.
Okay, great. I'm going to make it quick because I know you want to move on to another exciting
I
topic.
mean, this
for
is
us.
juicy, so go right ahead.
Oh, okay, great. So
Mhm.
everything that everyone has said about the workout and the prayer with the self-care and the manicures and the trips and those, I support, and they're all wonderful. But I will be honest about myself in that it is very challenging for me to really have a regular routine on self-care. I read about it and then I start and then I stop. I'll be honest. And a lot of reasons why it gets sort of abbreviated or on pause is because I'm putting out fires or something happens in the personal life with the family, and then there's an emergency that I have to kind of problem solve. See, I'm the problem solver. Whether they want to admit it, I come from a family with 10 siblings and so forth, but typically people rely on me because the way that I think, the logical thinking, the critical thinking, let's figure out what the problem is and work on the solution rather than let's talk about the problem for 5 hours and no solution. So I want to get to that solution and fix it. So I find that I like to help people. So a lot of my time gets split with helping friends and family and even other business owners. So I am still working on having that self-care routine, like even putting on the lipstick and makeup, that was something for me where it looks like for Ebony, you could just do that in your sleep. And the other lady,
No, ma'am.
it's a chore for me. But the three things that I have found that I started doing about 3 years ago,
Right.
and it's been a game changer for me. The first is the phone. So I used to have, when I would fall asleep, technology all around me, the laptop here, the phone here. People would be able to call me all times of night and I'd pick up. Well, I started removing the phone to be like maybe 3 feet, at least 4 feet, and sometimes on a different floor where I sleep. So when I'm
Okay.
sleeping, that phone is not near my physical body. Now, I don't know
Okay.
about the health issues around that, but I'm just speaking that for me, it has been very, very comforting to do it.
Okay.
The other thing is water. Water.
Yeah.
I'm not great at it, but
Got it.
I
Okay.
try to have it around me. Even if I'm just looking
So
at
Mary's
it.
got hers.
It makes a big difference. It does. We have to stay hydrated. And then the last thing is laugh. When was the last time all the work and the
Mm.
hustle and the scrambling where you could laugh like when you were a child. Like I
Mm.
got one of those, oh my God, childhood, high school laughs. I was like, oh my God, I still got it in me.
Yeah.
And so it is there. Find that old movie, find that joke, and don't be afraid to like let out that wonderful laugh that we hear other children be able to just laugh without any constraint. And I really feel that when I was able to recapture that, because I'm up there in the age now. So I was able to recapture that. I'm like, wow, it still exists. And it just made me feel more youthful, made me feel excited about the future, etc. So those
Mhm.
are the three things: the phone, the water, the laughter.
I
Those are
love those.
self-care.
I love those.
Yes.
Those are
Cool.
three wonderful tips I think that we all can incorporate into our daily lives. A lot of us are probably looking at our mugs like this is not water. We're gonna get some water today. Um, Carmen, what you drinking?
It's
That'll be the
Friday.
next,
It's okay.
that'll be the
That
next one.
Coffee.
That'll be
What's
the
in your
next
so
mug?
my
one.
unfinished nails on the screen.
Right. We hide, but it's the
I'm
one thing
hiding.
I heard in your speech, in your response was you're the helper and you're the go-to. You're the problem solver. They're gonna call you. You're one of 10. And I think that there's a lot on all of our shoulders, even as women, and I look and faith is important to me. And I ask God sometimes, I'm only the rib. How much did you expect me to be able to do? But apparently that's one important rib, ain't it? Because man, we take on a lot and we do a lot. But who helps the helper? Who
Mm.
pours into the helper? And I'm hearing that and I'm just getting all emotional right now because it's like, who fills our cup when we're continuously feeling others, and continuously pouring out to others? So I'm coming around the block, and Carmen, I want to just stop by your house one more time and just really talk about how women in leadership are supposed to show up and be strong. We're supposed to pull it together. We're supposed to hold it even though we're struggling. And I know you talked about a few things that have helped, but can you touch a little bit more on just how you balance being in that leadership role, but also just allowing yourself to be human?
Sometimes not well. I think, well, at least for me, in regards to, I have to remind myself my whys.
Mm.
That's what's important, right?
Mhm.
Why I'm doing what I'm doing and not sitting in a corporate office, pulling a paycheck. Why am I, and when I remind myself of that why, it allows me to give myself more grace. Also, and I said this before, that guilt factor, learning how to combat and just, putting things in their buckets, so to speak, not take all of the things so personal. My
Mm.
kids love me today, they're gonna hate me tomorrow, whatever, you know. Um, giving myself grace, giving ourselves grace is harder. It's easier said than done because we are the helpers. I'm the oldest. And
Mm.
so, and my mom is an immigrant. So I'm the translator in chief. I'm there's a meme out there and I laugh every time I see it because it's true. If you're the eldest daughter in an immigrant family, you're a strong man, right? Because that's really, truly, like, that's the truth. Like, I am the person that everybody comes to very much like Lemmy, like all of the things, because I am the designated matron. I didn't want that title, but they gave it to me. They voluntold me that this was going to be my path. Um, and sometimes, again, just saying no, I don't have space for that. I can't. Or I don't want to. And that's
Yeah.
okay too. Saying
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's hard to say no to our parents. It's hard to say no to our kids.
Yeah.
It's hard to say no to a client sometimes and put those boundaries there. Um, so not well. It's not easy. It's not easy to
Yeah.
give yourself grace and allow
Mhm.
yourself that time to be able to just protect yourself. so that you can be the best version of yourself to do all of the things that you need to get done.
Absolutely. And we hear the phrase so much. No is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
To tell you why.
It's easier said than done.
Easier said than done, but sometimes that's all you need to say is no. And I went to a de-escalation training yesterday, and they were just, like, I don't think I can help you with that right now. Like, they were trying to give us some other ways to say no softly that didn't bring, like, well, why, a response, from people.
And I think at the end of the day, the person who helps me the most, honestly, is the version of me that stops suffering in silence and does say no.
Yeah.
And like regains my,
Yeah.
my space.
Yes.
And that's hard. That's not an easy thing to do. It's hard.
Can we practice it now by all saying no? Because I know I need more.
You guys can join us in the chat too. We're gonna say it on the count of 3, and we want y'all to type it. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. No.
No.
Where y'all nose at? Where's the nose?
Oh, there's a lot.
Nope.
A lot of
no. I see it. No with 2 exclamation marks. Absolutely not. Not today, not tomorrow. No.
Well,
good.
and
I really did feel good.
It did. And it's all about those, like, establishing your boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so important and leads into self-care. And I
love that, Karen.
Yeah, I work with people all the time on this thing. And quite frankly, most of the helpers tend to be women.
Yes.
Right? Because our role, we're taking care of everyone. We're taking care of people. It's how we were raised, and we often have high empathy. I mean, it's all part of that. But that's like a first step with your, establishing those boundaries by just saying no first. And then really, once you start to do it, you feel your power, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I do have power. I have control over my own life and my own business.
And your own business. Mary, I want to talk to you because I know most people don't know, but you're actually really great with diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Oh,
and
yes.
Seeing how, you're looking at Mary like, how is that possible? And we have Isoken, who's, has the background for immigration. So does Lemi-Ola. So does Carmen. I'm just a natural Black woman. But we have Mary, who has so much experience. And right now in our climate, I just want you to touch on what that's like for women. What are some of the things that you've seen, some of the challenges that, we face, and some of the things that we can do to combat that?
Okay. So when I started my business, which was right at the end of 2020, so in more full swing in beginning of 2021, part of what I did is I got a certification as a facilitator, which is what you mentioned in the beginning. And it was a diversity to belonging facilitator. I facilitate conversations about race and about culture. And I learned how to do that because people are important to me. Humanity is important to me. And so at a time like this, where, everyone is, quite frankly, is being traumatized and re-traumatized with the uncertainty that's going on. I work with a number of groups, but I want to mention one of them in particular. It's HIR, which is spelled HIR, Healing Intergenerational Roots Wellness Institute. And their focus is mental health without borders, free mental health and healing services to everyone who needs it, starting with the underserved communities. So the primary community that they focus on, because it's founded by an Indigenous woman, is the Indigenous community. And now they've expanded into all of the underserved communities here in Milwaukee. An amazing, amazing organization. So go ahead and look them up. But right now, there is more need, I think, than ever before. We all came out of COVID, the entire world, with all this extra grief and loss and a lot of big hits to our mental health. And so what's happening is the more there's trauma and uncertainty, the more that goes up. And so our NAWBO organization is advocating at Capitol Hill for the rights of women business owners. It's nonpartisan. but they're looking out for women's business. And I see a lot of people, women and minorities, who now aren't eligible. The grants have been shut off. Some of the funding has been shut off from nonprofits. And the way that that seeps in, regardless of your political affiliations, is there's just this tension and animosity in the world right now that it gets scarier and scarier. So for us as women business owners, there may be fewer opportunities, but there may be more opportunities.
Yeah.
Depending on, who it is that you're speaking with. So that's how it affects people, though. And it affects our confidence, right? If you're consistently hearing negative things about you and your people, that affects our confidence. And so we really need to acknowledge that. I'm all about acknowledging, because it's a big loss. I mean, because I spend so much time not acknowledging, just like running through life. I can do it, sleeping 4 hours a night, doing every single thing and not stopping to feel my grief. That catches up to you eventually. So I'm all about acknowledge what's going on with yourself, find some people who support you, but then keep going, because there's been changes all through history. We're going to come out of this and we all can still be successful. So I hope that's what you wanted me to talk about.
Yeah, well, and because people don't feel that, and because you are white, people don't feel it. Or you have the compassion, and we're not seeing that come from a lot of women in this industry. It's like, no, but you do understand, and you help others understand, what it's like and what we're going through right now. Do either one of you want to speak to that as well, as far as what you're experiencing right now, giving that there's so much focus on your background and your heritage and your nationality?
Yeah. I wanted to thank you so much, Mary, for sharing everything you shared. I wanted to kind of go back to the question earlier about us women wearing multiple hats and trying to balance things. And you talked about us being reap, and yet we're doing all the major work, which is really, really interesting that you said that. And that experience, I want you to think about that experience and multiply that by 10 for an immigrant. Okay. That's really, for me, that's how I feel it is. The pressure of dealing with family back at home, in addition to your family here, in addition to starting from scratch, in addition to balancing two cultures for your children, trying to explain to them this is how things are done in our culture, but they go out there and there's a different concept and different culture. Them dealing with that imbalance, it is a challenge. It's times 3. So how do we handle these multiple hats that we wear? It is really okay to break down. I have broken down so many times, but the question is, what happens after? Do you get up? Do you dust your feet, right? But I do believe that there is grace for every season, and that's where I lean into. I think that God would not give us more than we can bear, for sure. And so I lean into that grace for the season I'm in. I will fall, but I think there's grace that will help me to stand. And then just think about the fact that in addition to that, you were taught to please everybody. Like you're taught to, especially women, we're taught to please everybody, and it's hard for us to say no. I still so strongly challenge with that concept of saying no, and I know no is a complete sentence, but I never do. but just imagine saying yes to every phone calls you get, international calls you get, saying yes to your kids, saying yes to your husband, saying yes to your employees, saying yes to your employer, all of that stuff. But what we're learning is that we have to prioritize what is the season that you are in. If you're in the season of raising kids, then your family, your kids is the priority. If you're in the season of building a business, then your business is your priority. Those are the things you say yes to. So spend time to reflect and understand, what season am I in? What am I building? What am I working on? Then you build your boundaries around that. so that you're not saying yes to everybody else and you're being distracted to 20 different ways. And I think that that's the grace that God gives us in season, just knowing what it is that you're working on. Let that be a priority, and everything else
Mhm.
is secondary, and you treat it as secondary.
I love that. And when you have your focus, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. What they're trying
Correct.
to throw at you and distract you with doesn't matter. I was talking to my
Yes.
mentor the other day, and she was like, don't worry about what you're saying. Don't worry. Because I was like, my certifications, my this, my that, everything's just in the air. She said, that doesn't matter. She said, are you still a professional? I was like, yeah. She was like, do you still do a dang on good job? And I was like, yeah, I do. She was like, then lead with that. And don't
Yes.
worry about the rest. The rest is a bonus. If they acknowledge
Yes.
it, if they don't, but you're still a professional, you're still a good, event planner, and you rock out, and then you leave. You just so happen to be a Black woman. That is not everything about your business, though. You are a professional first,
Correct.
So I love that. Keeping
love
that
it.
focus and just rocking with that. Come on, Carmen. I see your hands.
Well, yeah, yes to all, which is why, again, tribe, very important. These
Mhm.
kind of platforms where we pour into each other and lean
Mhm.
in on each other are important. But let's not pretend for 1 second that there's damage being done with these DEI rollbacks, right? Because diverse businesses drive innovation. That is a
Yeah.
fact. That is, I'm in insurance and I'm in finance. I'm all about statistics.
Mhm.
Women bring different leadership styles based on their different lived experiences
Mhm.
because of their different lenses of where they come from, what they've gone through to help solve real world problems. So when these things are cut, so do things like mentorship programs, right?
Mhm.
And we know the importance of what it's like to, when you're young, to see somebody that looks like you doing the thing that maybe you didn't
Yes.
think you could do,
Yeah.
right? The grant access, the pipeline building opportunities that helped so many of us get through the door.
Yes.
They cracked it open. A lot of us had to kick it in, right? So let's not, it's not neutral. When these programs disappear, the people who already had access will keep winning. And
Yeah.
in order for us to continue down this road, we need to make sure that platforms like this still exist, still have the opportunity to exist. And in order for that to be a reality, we need to lean into organizations like NAWBO and,
Yeah.
women, there's a ton out there, right? But that's what's important. And we
Yeah.
can't lose sight of that.
I love that. I want to touch
Yeah.
Miss Teresa. I want to thank you so much. We are loving having you here, honey. And thank you so much for your comment. But I think Dr. Cynthia Thompson had a question. I hope I'm reading this right. She wants us to talk about how we overcame the obstacles, just to share a little bit about that. So if you guys want to go and touch and just, take turns. Whoever wants to start first.
I'll always start because I'm a giant extrovert.
Okay.
Lots and lots of self exploration for me because I was so bottled up. Oh, she wants to share her
You want to share
story.
your story?
Oh, that's what I was saying. We talked about
Oh.
obstacles.
I don't know
Yeah,
if we can
okay.
bring anybody on. I don't know how to do that, but I tell you what, we will connect with you after and spend some time with you on your story, if that's okay with you. Because I don't know if we can add anybody to the webinar. We can only acknowledge questions in the chat. I'm so sorry.
But that's great. She wanted to share.
Yeah, we love that.
Can we unmute her? I'm going to just take a look and see if there's
Are
a
we?
new
I don't think
way.
we're able to. Oh, she
see.
said that's fine. Okay.
Okay.
Do you mind? Do you want us to answer it anyway, or you okay? Look at us being a sweetheart. You okay? What can we do?
Well, it's important. We're acknowledging.
No,
She said
yeah.
yes. Go ahead. All right,
Yes.
go ahead.
Hurdles.
So why don't you go ahead,
Yeah,
Lemi-Ola, go ahead.
yeah. So I was gonna say, just one thing about the obstacles. I felt like my
Mhm.
business broke down. So I was, I've been in business for over 15 years and was really early on with a lot of the tech. pioneering, like with the websites and the code and the plugins and the companies that are, some of them have gone under and some of them have really thrived, but we were very early behind the scenes before people were really comfortable with just being online and even online learning. So when COVID had hit, we were already virtual for 4 years teaching, internationally. So we've always been an innovative, forward-thinking company. And that is what helped us survive during the pandemic, where 42% of Black and Brown businesses closed within 3 months. So that was our saving grace, is that we invested in the technology. So, we were pretty much ahead of the game, but a lot of people with resources were able to surpass us. They just had the resources. They had the business set up right. They got that PPP loan 10 times over, what have you. So they were able to launch themselves into the future and, expand in all resources and so forth. And we struggled, and we still continue to struggle, but we gave back to the community and took care of our community and offered services. And so the obstacles are always going to be there, but it's really how you're going to approach it. There isn't going to be a time where you probably don't feel like, man, I don't feel like I'm getting my good share. I'm doing a lot, pouring a lot out, and I'm not really getting a lot in to support me. And you look at someone who may be like, oh, well, I don't think they've done as much as what I've done, and yet they're getting, this, this grant, this whatever. And then you start comparing yourself, and then you start doubting yourself, and then you start getting a little irritated with yourself. Like, did I make the right decision? Did I make the right path? Am I giving too much? That reflection. But just know those thoughts and that journey is normal, because when you start doing that and you sit still, that is a sign that something better is coming around. There's something that you need to take care of in your business or in your life that you need to prepare for. And so during this next phase of what I'm calling my company Genesis, right? This rebirth of my company, we're going through new technology with AI, we're implementing all these things, and it's a long learning curve, but I am deep in the woods with it, and it is painful, but I feel like, just like the first time, overcoming these obstacles and coming out at the end of the tunnel is gonna allow for sustainability, allow for my company to have legacy, and allow us to compete still against bigger, larger companies that are offering similar services. So the only way to really stay competitive is to go through some hurdles and some hoops and some, and that is good stuff. But you still got to do the self-care like everybody else talked about. You still got to lean on your posse of girls. You still got to have your wine and cheese and all that along the way. But it's normal. I'm just saying that it's normal. Expect multiple iterations as your business grows, if that makes sense.
There's something that you brought out that I really want to talk about, and that's the comparison. Why do we compare? Why do we look at, and think the grass is greener on the other side? Why do we do that? And how can we battle? How can we negate that and say, I am who I am in my lane, doing what I do. My process is my process. My timeline is my timeline. Like, how do you keep yourself focused when sometimes, like you said, it does look like, hey, they haven't even been around that long, and how do I get that, and I've been struggling for years and I can't even get this, so how do you keep yourself encouraged and not compare? Go ahead, Carmen.
We compare ourselves because that's what we've been taught to do, and we have to unlearn that. Right. We're fed this. Look at what happens on social media, right? Like it's in everything. But even before social media, mothers, when I was a young mom, I remember, like, even like when you take the kids to the park and you see all of the things, like that's what we've been taught to do and conditioned to do. For women, especially, I don't know that especially, but I'm a woman, I'm not a man, so I can't speak on their on their experience. But for women, Especially those of us raising our kids, running businesses, doing all of the things, we carry all this silent shame about how our path looks or didn't look, or, I should have been here, I should have had that. I have friends who, are frustrated because they feel like they should have been homeowners by now, all of the things.
Yeah.
And so the only way to negate that, if you will, or combat that is awareness, understanding when it's happening and kind of like mentally stop yourself, reconnect, and again, come back to your why.
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing what you're doing to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And celebrate others without questioning yourself.
Yeah.
I am my friend's cheerleader. I am like, yes, I truly love that for you. Not in a shady way, like for real, for real. Now, if she's wearing a weird outfit, I mean, like, I love that for you. But no, really just, being appreciative of my girl's wins, because I know if my girl was on a jet, I'm gonna be right there with her on that private jet going wherever it is that we're going. If you got money, I got money.
If I can I
Um,
comment on this,
but
because it's like
also, yes,
Yeah.
but real quick,
oh,
but
go ahead,
also
finish.
curate what you consume. That's very important. We
Mm-hmm.
have to curate what we consume. If it's making you feel small, mute it, unfollow it,
Yes.
protect your peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I wanted to say is the foundation of all of that, this comparing, constantly comparing ourselves to other people. We talk about trust and how trust is so important in building relationships with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But all the trust starts with trusting yourself.
Mhm.
And simple things like, okay, you promised to do 6 things for a neighbor, and you also promised to take 15 minutes a day to go for a walk for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly breaking the trust with yourself when you don't do it. And that self-trust becomes the root system for all other kinds of trust. And then ultimately, that leads to self-love.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I often hear from my clients as we're talking about this, because so many of them, and I saw Michael had written in the chat, it's the same for men. So many of my male clients as well will say, oh, well, that guy over there already has some business development coaching for lawyers, already have brought in 6 clients this year, and I still am working on whatever. And we don't give our own selves grace for, what are the reasons behind that? And what is it that you are doing for yourself? So I just wanted to interject that, because ultimately all of us need to get to that place of self-trust, self-love, and confidence, because then we're confident enough to say, she's doing that, just like Carmen said. That's amazing. That's awesome. Instead of feeling like I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to acknowledge some of these comments in the chat, because this is really good. And I see that, that grief and struggle and loss is common with all of us in our business, male or female. Like, we're experiencing that. And Sky, I heard you say this is the year of no. I love that. You protect your peace for real. And I just see that, when we looking at Dr. Cynthia's comment as well, like, a lot of us, I think, and you guys can relate to this, culturally, you're taught not to speak out, and so you don't have that voice. You don't want to, project your feelings, you just go with the flow, because that's how you were raised. And so I've heard that from Isoken, I've heard that from Lemi-Ola, I've heard that from Carmen, like, you would get, don't you, what you say, and so then to come out and really be forward, about how you feel and how for yourself, and speaking up for yourself, is not encouraged. I mean, so how do we speak out now as women and say, in general too, because we got some men on the line, okay? In general, like, how do we speak up for ourselves? And I know me, I'm not a person who speaks up for myself. I don't. I need people like Mary in my corner to be like, no, you're not going to treat her like that, it just, and I have to learn to do that for myself. So how do we say, these are my boundaries, or this is what I want, or I deserve that money? Like, how do we do that, for ourselves? How do we advocate for ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, I wish there's a formula for that, right? I'm waiting to hear that. But it is so true. I think that I am struggling with that so hard right now. And the good thing is just being in a place of awareness that you know that this is your weakness, right? And that's the best place to start because then you know what to do about it. So, but how do we learn anything, right? You have to unlearn what you know before, right? And then have a strategy for learning the new skills that you need to get. It's like exercise and muscle, you have to actually do it. So is stepping into that space, maybe it may just be one person you try with. You just say, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna keep my boundaries. I'm not gonna allow you to continue treating me this way. Do it the first time. The moment you do it once, you see that you gain a little confidence to maybe do it again the second time, right? That's for me, that's how I am learning to do it. It's still a struggle, but I think the more we exercise that muscle, the stronger that muscle is gonna become, right? I
Yep.
always say I wanted to go back a little bit about our parents. I always say that they meant well. They didn't know what's up. They just what is the parents taught them.
Right.
And actually when it comes to that comparison, our parents really wanted to challenge us. That's their way of challenging you to be more and to do more. Like, look at that person's our neighbor's kids. They just XYZ, right? And they use that they don't intend for you to feel bad about it, but of course you're gonna feel bad about it. But it could also motivate you and challenge you. Let me go do XYZ so I can make my parents proud.
Yeah.
Even though it's not a good way to be all that you are called to be, but that experience can still help you grow, right? But social media have made it so terrible that we are now like a robotic judgmental folks. Like you're scrolling, every scroll that you see, you're judging it, whether you like it or not. Try it. Be aware. Just try it. Whether you like it or not, you're judging it. What do they think they're oh, it's working out for them. No, 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 no. You're judging it, you're coming to a conclusion but it's just a fraction of their life. So I have to remember and remind myself the grass is always greener on the other side until you actually get to the other side.
Yeah.
When you step into their field, you realize, oh, the grass is not as green as it
No,
looks.
it's AstroTurf.
Right. It's all fake.
It's all fake.
You
Come
know,
on, Carmen.
I remember, I mean, I just have a lot of memories of constantly having, my mom's voice in my head when I would get a good, like, right when I was, finished college and I had my internship and I was offered this job and it was a decent pay. And her mentality again, as, an immigrant was like, oh, be grateful and, just keep your head down and so that was a really hard thing to shift away from as I became an entrepreneur and I had to kind of like fight for my worth and negotiate my worth, so to speak, in business, even when I was scared. And sometimes that looks like walking away when respect isn't on the table. It's about asking questions in rooms where I felt out of place. And so really just like knowing what your non-negotiables are, practicing small so you can show up big, stop over explaining yourself. That's a big one for me.
Yeah.
I would find myself like over explaining my position. And that takes away from your negotiating power,
Yeah.
right? So and speaking up isn't about being loud. It's not about being loud, it's about being
Yes.
clear and
That's it.
consistent. And once you start doing that, you realize it's not just empowering, it's necessary.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Don't tell anybody that, quote unquote, label me as having an attitude, because all of a sudden I have an opinion on what you've said or what you're bringing to me, and I would like to respond to that. That doesn't mean I have an attitude or I'm upset. It just means that I'm getting ready to voice my opinion just like you voice yours, and let's communicate as adults. So sometimes, you fear of that. You have to find a way to softly say what you say, so it doesn't come off as aggression, or it doesn't come off as offensive. But I said what I said, and I meant it, and that's how I feel. That's how I feel. And I didn't say it disrespectfully. I protected me, and so I don't want to be what is that, either criticized or for that, or penalized even because of that.
But even if
I
you
think it's
are,
just
that's okay.
that's true.
And I had to learn how to be okay with that.
Mhm.
Okay, next. Like, because what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We can't bend ourselves into pretzels for every single body and person. And I often I see this all the time, well, calm
Mhm.
down. That's like the wrong thing to tell a Latina, but so yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, this brings me to the thought where we were in the Goldman Sachs 10K program, and I so
Mhm.
clearly remember they had us do this like leadership quiz, this personality test, right? And it was into 4 buckets. Okay, I remember when I took the test, it was about how your leadership style would be, which is essentially how other people see you,
Mhm.
right? So you had to answer it from that perspective, how other people see you. And gosh darn it, whoever came up with that tool was right on the money for each and every one of us. I came out to be what they called the driver. Someone like Carmen, like, we got the problem. Come on. Let's move. Let's do this. Boom, boom, boom. I'm not very gentle with the words. I'm not very soft. Sometimes I'm just really like a go-getter. Let's get it done. And there were other people who were more like expressive, right? They can have a good conversation, make you laugh. They weren't so much the doers, but they were the expressive. And then there were 2 other different types. But what we learned from that is, for me, it was an awakening that I'm okay being the driver. But they also taught us that if you're a driver and you're communicating to someone who may be like non-expressive and a little bit more like reserved, they may take your comments the wrong way. So not that you have to change who you are necessarily, but the one tip, I went up to one of the non-expressive and I said, what can I do to make sure that you feel heard in the
Yeah.
conversation? Can you help me understand? And she said, well, if we're having a conversation and you ask me, if you try to sum up like what Ebony does, sum up what I just told you, then I know that you're listening to me. Or if you ask me, like, how do you feel about this? Then I know that you're including me in the conversation.
Mhm.
So as I learned to insert those 2 sentences into, my vocabulary packet, so I could, like, when I'm having a conversation, I can utilize those. And because I know that, in my organization, I can't hire all drivers,
Yeah.
the HR team has to be someone who has her, in that example, skill set in order to attract the talent. Otherwise, we're going to scare everybody away before they get up on day 1, but that type of, but so that's why it can't be me. But I am good at sales. I'm good in the operations. So I say that to say that if people are telling you, calm down, this and that, it's because they're not your personality type. They're on the other side. So don't take offense. Just know that they're on one of the other 3 quadrants, and they're receiving it differently, right? Isoken,
Mhm.
you remember that quiz we took?
Oh, I remember. I was cohort 34.
Okay, yeah, Ebony, you know as well.
I remember.
Me
You know
too.
as
Thank you
well.
for
It's so
bringing that
helpful.
up. I gotta go back and take
I know.
my
I was
test
like, "Ooh,
again.
that was a painful little
Yeah.
painful little exercise." So I want to have you guys make sure you put your information in the chat. We're got about 15 minutes out, and I want to leave this open for some questions from the chat or from the group. We've got some really great feedback. We've got some drivers in the group. So I just love all the comments and the participation that you guys have given us. We just want to take this time to thank you to the BACP and to NAWBO Chicago, Wisconsin, for giving us this platform to do our Behind the Mask Part 2. We did our live version earlier this month, and it's something that we do every year as part of the NAWBO Chicago DEI committee, and it just became an annual event. And then we got this opportunity to break it down even further for you, here on this platform. So we're just really, really thankful, and we're going to put our information in the chat so that you can connect with us further if you'd like. But if anybody has any questions at this moment, please go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we'll be sure to answer them. We've got about 14 minutes now to take care of that. Let me make sure I put my information here. Here's my name. You are so welcome, Alexander. Anybody have any questions?
Let me see.
Right, I'm not seeing anybody's hands go up. So is there anything that you guys want to say as we close? Any closing remarks?
I just want to share real quick about my experience with NAWBO. So I know we have an event coming up in next month. And I highly really encourage people to attend this event, April 25th, right?
Right.
So our company started in 2020. We actually got a license March 31st. So we'll be 5 years this year, which is amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So when we got licensed to operate, and then a few weeks later, there was the pandemic shutdown. So everything was completely shut down. It's like, here, go do this, but hey, stop, don't do it anymore. And then you have no idea when to start. It was very depressing. It was it was a strong obstacle, but we got turned it around for good, right?
Always.
But looking back now, right? But during that time, it was so difficult. I was just questioning myself. This was not meant to be. I had to shut everything down. The office locked down. But I said I would continue working on it at home. I needed inspiration. I don't have, and I didn't know that's what I needed. I really don't have that support system in terms of the people around me. A lot of the people around me were not in business. They're not running their business. They're immigrant like me. We're struggling together, trying to raise kids and go to school and work. And so nobody to really relate that to. And one of my coach at that time introduced me to NAWBO. So everything for NAWBO were online, and it was all free. So you could attend so many, many events online. So NAWBO was doing a lot of online Zoom meeting, and I joined in all of it. That was my lifesaver. That was my lifesaver, because when I sit there and I'm looking at these amazing women on my screen, it gave me so much hope that this was doable. It gave me so much hope that women can be something, women can do something. I have this desire in me that I can do more, I can be more, I can be more impactful. And I see women who are so impactful on the screen, and they are all sharing their experiences. Then it made it real. Like, this is very possible. It was so inspiring. I hear people say, oh, I've had my business for 20 years. These are my challenge. This is what we were doing about the COVID, da, da, da. And I'm just sitting there listening and just fascinated. You have to, you have to understand that I have no role model. I have nobody to look up to, but never was that community, that inspiration. And I just was amazed by it. So community is so important. Where you want to be at, what your vision is, plug yourself into that community. And NAWBO is that community for a lot of women, for all of us. So I encourage you and challenge you to plug yourself, attend that event next month, the conference, and find your tribe in there. You need people around you to continue to be that inspiration. And then fast forward, it was 2020. Fast forward 2024, I'm winning an award as the Women Business Owner of the Year. I could have even done that, right? I was this naive, just so naive person looking at these amazing women on the screen. Oh my God, this is so cool. So yes, that's a spiel about NAWBO. I
And I
love
put the
NAWBO. I
information
love
in
you
the
guys.
chat. So if any of you want to go ahead and grab a ticket, you can. And a lot of us have tables. So if you want to have a seat at our table, we always have room. Let us know. We can definitely make space for you. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much, Respect. Oh, my God. Oh, thank you, Michael. We appreciate that. Anybody else have any closing remarks?
I've got one.
Okay.
Through all of the struggle and all of the obstacles, like the biggest thing that I learned, and I really learned with my mom's dementia, to be in the moment, because she was in the moment. She couldn't remember the past. And then 3 seconds later, she'd forget something, whatever had just happened. Being in the moment. And then the biggest thing, don't forget to live, enjoy life. What
Love it.
Lemi-Ola said about laughing, getting together with my NAWBO sisters, we're always the loudest, right, Ebony?
Yeah.
NAWBO Wisconsin is the loudest, but we're just having so much fun and laughing, and that is so important. Enjoy life, just live. That's mine.
I love that. Go ahead, Carmen.
My closing remark is, if there's just a couple things I can leave with everyone, is you don't have to be perfect to be powerful.
Oh, love that.
Taking one step at a time, speak up, take the risk, ask the questions, but most importantly, protect your peace. That's it. That's all.
And my closing remark is, you are where you need to be for your future self. It's right now, right here.
Love it.
I love it.
Woo!
I don't have anything. This has just been so amazing. I thank you guys for filling our cup on this beautiful Friday morning. Who was that? Nikita, to your comment, I am not sure, but when you fill out that feedback form on how the webinar was, drop that in the comments. We need a part 3, and we will be happy to run this back for you one more time again. Okay. I know that we will. And look, now this is how you do things. We started on time, and we're going to give you back 8 minutes of your day. And we ended early. Now, that's a good webinar. So we just want to thank you guys for coming. We want to thank you for joining us and listening to us and taking back that feedback. And just know that you are absolutely where you need to be. Now, I hope you guys all take those masks off and be your best selves today and every day. We love you. We thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Today's webinar was recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Chicago BACP. Join us on next Thursday, March 27th, for our first Small Business Expo. This expo will be remote. There's still time to register. Please visit chicago.gov/biz expo. That's BIZ Expo. If you are a part of the BACP certificate program, you will receive credit for your attendance today. If you have any questions, please send us an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. Thank you again to our panel for this great webinar, and enjoy your weekend. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.